Hello everyone. I'm John Nellthorp from the Institute for Transport Studies at the University of Leeds, and Andy Brown asked us to come talk about a transport topic within the context of valuing infrastructure. So that's what I'm going to do today. I think probably the first thing to say is that this is the result of some project-based working between the university and various transport authorities, including Transport for London, West Yorkshire Combined Authority, DFT, and then also a non-transport authority, DEFRA. So there's a bit of cross-cutting, cross-sectoral thinking going on here, I hope. Second thing to say is that the paper is unashamedly a bit of a smorgasbord of ideas relating to valuation and funding of infrastructure, especially valuation. I understand there's been a lot of focus on High Speed 2, Crossrail, Network Rail's investment programme, and Highways England's RIS and RIS 2 sort of elsewhere within the programme, I think probably mainly coming up tomorrow. I don't want to rehearse those discussions just now, and instead I want to focus on something much more everyday, which is the issue of valuing and funding street improvements. And as such, I hope I'm going to say something a little bit different and provoke some discussion between all of us. So that's the aim. I think I want to suggest that there's more to street improvements than initially meets the eye. There's more value involved in it and more scope for change. Also, there are some real challenges for research and for local and regional authorities to tackle together. So, initially, what does street improvement comprise? Well, we can unpack this some more, but it certainly includes better design and better maintenance and operation. What's the context? Well, picking up on many of the things that have been said this morning, the local authority budget pressures are very evident in the UK but also internationally, and within this austerity climate there is a small state agenda which we are having to work within, but there is also a shift, I think, within budget allocations for the last 5 years and looking ahead for the next 5 years towards more investment in infrastructure instead of current revenue spending. And that shifts the focus towards evaluation of investment. Also, crucially, there's the issue of regional devolution. So let's make that real by just looking a little bit at the region we're in. So the Northern Powerhouse, or the Transport for the North area, contains 16 million people, and it comprises multiple city regions. That's bigger in population terms than the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, just like the San Francisco Bay Area, businesses here are looking for a number of things. And we can pick out of the recent policy and research agendas some key points. Businesses are looking for creative, skilled people, a place to do business, and excellent connectivity in terms of physical connectivity and in terms of data. So, what could we be investing in to ensure economic growth which benefits all sections of society? Well, following on from the previous observations, we can invest in skills. That's another conference. I'm not going to talk about skills. The place we live in, I'd like to give that a bit more airplay than it usually receives. And connectivity. I'm sure you can think of others. So, just drilling down a bit into the place. One element of that is streets and urban realm. The image on the screen is of a city centre street, a metro station and the connection to the street environment. It's actually one of the Crossrail stations in London. We might also think about neighbourhood centres, and we might think about housing and business premises, all part of the urban fabric and part of the link between transport and place. Connectivity, of course, is a wide topic that joins all those together. We, in our field, often talk about access to employment, effective commuter transport, walking and cycling infrastructure. We're very concerned at the moment with connectivity across the north, with Northern Powerhouse Rail, and of course international connectivity, airports and connections to the wider world. So you're probably thinking, where's the beef? You're an economist, give me some numbers. So I'll do that now. I'm going to talk about the results of a little strand of research that's covered work for DFT on street design, valuation of, work for DEFRA on valuation of environmental quality and cleanliness of streets, work for TfL on valuation of urban realm, and for West Yorkshire Transport Research Innovation Fund on land value uplift. Okay, so cutting straight to the results. This first study shows that citizens are willing to pay significant amounts of money to have streets designed differently. And the two images on the screen relate on the left to a street as it is now, and on the right to an alternative design which gives pedestrians the highest priority in the user hierarchy. So there's a bundle of rights that go with that. In terms of economic results, valuation of that change to the street environment was undertaken using stated preference methods and also hedonic pricing in the property market. The results of those two methods are encouragingly fairly consistent, and the ballpark value arising from that is something in the region of £30 to £50 per resident user. In other words, somebody who lives near to that high street per annum. And if you unpack that a bit, it's interesting that the first and largest part of that is their willingness to pay for the change in priority. So even though it started off as something very small, just street design, actually it has much wider implications for the way that we design our cities. Okay, I felt obliged to ask the question, are citizens interested in paying extra tax for this? What do you think? Well, my current view is they're probably not under the local government funding environment of 2017. The fieldwork underlying those numbers was done in 2010, a slightly more affluent time in a sense, but already within the period of the global financial crisis. But it does indicate what citizens place a value on and what choices they would want made on their behalf. So in terms of prioritisation, there is evidence here that people do value street design significantly. Okay, turning to other aspects of the street environment in cities. Citizens, it seems, are willing to pay for green infrastructure and for clean and well-maintained streets. So here are some numbers, this time arising from stated choice and priority ranking-based research conducted in different sizes of agglomeration in England. And again, there are some very significant valuations on these attributes. So it seems that people are willing to pay a lot for having clean streets, for having street trees, and for having better street lighting. And by better, we mean less polluting and less intruding relative to their homes. I haven't got time to go into all the details of that, but if you want to pick up anything to do with that in the questioning, then please do. Based on those values on the last slide, we can make some inferences about investment in green infrastructure and street maintenance and cleansing. And the benefit cost ratios, emerging from some indicative calculations, are really large. Compared with the sorts of benefit cost ratios that you get from a lot of infrastructure spend, those are very high. Are they just anomalous? Is it because this is the first attempt to do this? Well, there have been one or two previous studies. Benefit cost ratios from those studies have also, in some cases, been fairly high. So maybe the message here is that people do value the street environment, street quality, street design very highly. Okay, so just broadening it out slightly and connecting it back to connectivity as I sort of come into the downhill part of my talk. There is a related field which is perhaps a little bit better researched, which is the field of walking and cycling infrastructure. And the Davis review from 2014 found that across a range of different interventions and investments, an average benefit cost ratio of about 5.5 was found. Again, I think much higher than was previously expected, relied on including the health benefits and external effects in the appraisal. So I think there's a comparison there with the work on valuing streets. The valuing streets literature is very small. It's a small research field, but I think there are promising signs in terms of demonstrating value for money in a cold, dry, pointless cost-benefit analysis. Okay, so valuation of urban realm then, putting some of those things together. Transport for London is investing heavily in urban realm improvements at the present time. Other regional authorities are doing too. The example on the slide is the redesign of Exhibition Road in South Kensington in London at a cost of £29 million. And you can see from the picture how the allocation of space in the street has been changed and the sort of uses that it serves have been shifted. So let's wrap up with a few observations about valuing urban realm and land value uplift in particular. I've got quite a few words on these last couple of slides, so I'm going to pick out some key issues and just speak to those. So on this slide, as I've already shown with the numbers that I've presented, there are measurable perceived benefits from urban realm improvements. I haven't talked about it in much depth, but there's a little bit of evidence in the property market of positive land value uplift from investing in urban realm. But there's a serious challenge from the way that we do appraisal of transport projects, which incorporates a lot of time savings to motorised traffic. And that means that valuing these benefits of changing the street environment, they do have a big hurdle to climb in terms of achieving a good benefit cost ratio. Happy to say more about that if you want me to. Turning then to the first three words of my title, land value uplift. I think the key points I wanted to make here were that the land market is an established surrogate market in which we attempt to value some of these changes in urban quality. That's been the case for several decades. The modelling methods used have become more and more advanced over time. You've probably seen profiles like the ones on the screen there before. Investing in rail and mass transit infrastructure tends to push up property prices in the local vicinity of the stations. The extent of the value premium tends to depend on how much accessibility is improved and the state of the local property market. So, summarising a fairly large amount of recent research, I think just some key points that I'd like to offer into the discussion are that if you're interested in land value capture, then you need to understand and be able to predict land value uplift. And so we've been working on understanding the relationships between urban realm, connectivity and land value. Our initial models have found that there are value premia related to place quality as well as connectivity. There are some outstanding issues as well in terms of the way that that feeds into the business case for investment. So you can see how that feeds into the financial case in terms of land value capture. Its role in the economic case is very much still under discussion. Okay, my concluding observation is that I think, standing back one step further, there's a kind of overarching problem here, which everything I've been talking about relates to, which is the valuation of multi-sectoral projects. I'm a transport economist. I spend a lot of time evaluating transport infrastructure. Other people at the conference work in other infrastructure sectors, and of course joined-up infrastructure planning is a key shared interest. I think one of the areas that is central to our research at the moment is to try to measure the benefits of projects which stretch across multiple sectors, and to try to identify in which market or how best to capture the total value. And maybe that leads back to the rubric of the conference and its interest in systems of systems approaches to valuing infrastructure. So something to discuss there. Okay, I'll stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.